This is John Cena. Smash the like button if you believe that Roman Reigns is better than Jon Moxley.
Oh man, come on, Tony Khan, man. Come on, Dean Ambrose. You ain't slick. I know what you are trying to do. You are trying to copy off the World Wrestling Federation. Nobody's dumb. I'm the only guy that's giving you facts and evidence. And here's why. Look at this whole entire storyline. It feels and looks very similar to the Bloodline. Okay, let me tell you who's cosplaying as who. Obviously, Dean Ambrose is cosplaying as Roman Reigns. Pac, he's Solo. Wheeler Useless, that is Jey Uso. And Cesaro, that is Jimmy Uso. And Paul Heyman is Marina Shafir. And Daniel Bryan, that is Sami Zayn. Come on, man, it's too obvious, man. We all know that Dean Ambrose, he still watches the World Wrestling Federation. And he knows he will never overshadow Roman Reigns. And he knows that Triple H is doing great things in the World Wrestling Federation. Dean Ambrose, he's known for taking ideas from movies, TV shows, other companies. He is known for doing this. Now, here's why the new version of the BBC is their version of the Bloodline. Now, I think down the line, Dean Ambrose will change the name of this group to have a fresh, clean slate. But let's talk about Wheeler Useless. Now, he is very reluctant on falling in line with this new version of the BBC. That sounds familiar, right? Remember, Roman Reigns was trying to convince Jey to fall in line. This sounds too goddamn familiar. Cesaro, he really feels like Jimmy Uso. Daniel Bryan, right now, he is acting like Sami Zayn. Remember when Sami Zayn was trying to convince Jey to leave the Bloodline? This is the same thing. Eventually, Daniel Bryan will convince Wheeler Useless to leave the BBC to join him. And eventually, down the line, I feel like Dean Ambrose will mentally abuse Wheeler Useless and try to make him fall in line with his new faction, his new version of the BBC. It just feels too similar. Here's why Pac is Solo. Solo came out of nowhere, just like Pac. When in the hell did Pac join the BBC? Just like Solo Sikoa. Same thing, both guys joined the group at random, and they were the last members to join the group. This new version of the BBC, it feels too similar to the Bloodline, meaning Roman Reigns was brainwashing everybody in the group. They had to fall in line. Stockholm Syndrome, that's what they were. Jimmy, Jey, Paul, Solo, they had Stockholm Syndrome. They did not realize that Roman was mentally abusing them. This is the same thing with Dean Ambrose and his new Bloodline. This is the all-elite fake pro wrestling version of the Bloodline in their company. So, I just watched Collision. It was a trios match with the BBC versus Private Party and Commander. So, I was watching Wheeler Useless. I'm like, bro, this is too obvious, man. I know what y'all trying to do. He was so reluctant. He was not trying to fall in line with Cesaro and Pac. It felt like I was watching the World Wrestling Federation. It felt like I was watching the Usos and Solo and Sami Zayn. That's how it felt. They are really trying to turn this into the new Bloodline. He was acting like Jey Uso. For example, remember the Elimination Chamber, Sami Zayn versus Roman. And Jey, he came out of nowhere and he interfered in a match. But Roman was trying to make Jey attack Sami, but he didn't want to. He was very hesitant. That's what Wheeler Useless was doing. Wheeler Useless was very reluctant to join the match and attack Private Party. That's what I saw in this match, because he don't want to fall in line just yet. He's very conflicted. Which side will he join? Daniel Bryan or Dean Ambrose? That sounds eerily similar. Which side will Jey join? Roman or Sami Zayn? Come on, man. This is really obvious what they're doing. All right, so how is Marina Shafir Paul Heyman? Because Paul Heyman, he hardly ever talked. Roman did all the talking for the Bloodline. He just sat back and just allowed Roman to do all the talking. Right now, that's what Marina Shafir is doing. She ain't saying shit. She ain't talking. She is just a background player for Dean Ambrose. She is there to serve and follow around Dean Ambrose. That sounds like Paul Heyman. She is obviously a Dean Ambrose girl, just like how Paul Heyman was a Roman Reigns guy. Right now, Cesaro, that is Jimmy Uso. He is just a lackey for Dean Ambrose. That's what he is. So this group is turning into a bootleg bloodline. So, will Wheeler Useless fall in line with the new BBC? Yes, he will. That's where this angle is going. Eventually, he's going to fall in line, just like Jey Uso. He's going to fall in line with Dean Ambrose. Now, will Dean Ambrose beat Daniel Bryan for the world title? That's how it's looking, because it looks like Dean Ambrose, he is about to get a strong, heavy-ass push from Con Man. It looks like they are trying to book Dean Ambrose as their version of Roman Reigns. It looks like this guy is about to have a strong-ass run that's very, very similar to Roman Reigns. It just makes sense for Dean Ambrose to beat Daniel Bryan for the world title. Where does this leave Christian Cage? I think there is a strong possibility that he might fail his cash-in, because if they are giving Dean Ambrose a Roman Reigns-like push and they are about to turn the BBC into the new bloodline, then there's no reason to give Christian Cage the world title, because it looks like they are trying to turn the BBC into a strong, heavy-ass push faction that's going to win all the championships. So why not give Dean Ambrose the world title? It does make sense for Dean to be the one to retire Daniel Bryan. Who else? Who else should retire Daniel Bryan besides Dean Ambrose? He's the perfect guy to retire Daniel Bryan. Okay, so here's why Daniel Bryan is their version of Sami Zayn. Look back at last year's Royal Rumble. It was back when I think Sami Zayn had to make a choice. Either side with Kevin Owens or side with Roman Reigns. And this doofus, he sided with fucking Kevin Owens. And remember, his ass got jumped by Roman, Solo, and Jimmy, but not Jey. That sounds fucking familiar. Jey did not want to attack Sami Zayn, just like how Wheeler does not want to attack Daniel Bryan. That's the same thing. This company has hijacked the Bloodline storyline. Why did Dean Ambrose almost kill fucking Daniel Bryan? I think it was because Daniel Bryan did not want to fall in line with the vision of the new version of the BBC. So Dean Ambrose kicked him out. That's what happened. Will this angle draw some money? I'm gonna say no, based on we have recently seen this storyline. Now, if this angle was done maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, let's say the Bloodline was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I can see it. But no, the Bloodline is still going on. Hell, Sami Zayn might reunite with Jey Uso, Jimmy, Reigns. So you can't rehash angles from other companies that just happened not that long ago. That makes no sense.